Professor of Behavioral at Medicine Touro College. Nice to have you here. And Dr. Rebecca Merkin, Associate Professor at Baruch College. Nice to have you here. She also has a book coming out, Saving Face in Business, Managing Cross-Cultural Interactions. Nice to have you all. Okay, let's get down to it. Should we discuss politics at work? Dr. Jeff.
I don't think it's a great idea, but I also think it's necessary given the times that we're in today, given that a lot of the protests that we're seeing, the issue with white supremacist groups, I think a lot of that is because we don't talk about what's essential. We don't talk about race. So not a great idea at the office, but I think it's something, especially in these days, that is necessary. Because when we hold on to some of those thoughts, it really does make for a more toxic environment.
Wait, necessary to talk about, but don't do it at work?
Well, what I'm saying is that I don't think it's the best idea, but I don't think people can hold it in anymore, not with what's going on politically. People have been killed, you know, unnecessary violence. We're seeing the rise of these white supremacy groups again. How do you not talk about something like that?
Rebecca Merkin, what's your view?
I somewhat agree, but...
Somewhat?
Yes. No,
She mostly disagrees.
Yeah,
we talked about this.
Okay,
let
so
it on us.
Yes.
All right. No, I think given how things are right now, I think the gloves are off. I think that people have gotten very emotional, too emotional. People feel unrestrained, and that really we need to get some work done. So it would be a good idea to just, like, you could talk about that over lunch or with your friends who you agree with. But to have fights and conflict would just take away from being able to work.
Being able to work, productivity.
Yes,
Your job most likely is not these matters.
Exactly. It's distracting.
Is there a way to do it without, you know, causing a riot in the workplace?
Well, that's what we don't want to do, right? We don't want to, in many ways, mimic the behavior that we're seeing at the protests. And so that's why I think the workplace might be an interesting place to be able to talk and to share dialogue. But you can't go into it with knowing that it's only about your position and no one else's. So you have to be prepared, you have to be open to get a different perspective, stick to the facts, I like to say, and more than anything else, see where you can find some agreement in your conversation. Some of the greatest conversations come from when, you know, people may be on different sides, because it does stimulate thought. But if you stick to these rules, especially of decency and humanity and listening to one another, then you can share your ideas. And that's what is missing in this country, that we're not talking and listening to one another. It's either your way or the highway.
I agree with you. I think that people need to listen more.
So I'm going to just kind of, you know, extend this a little bit. So we share a house with my parents and my sister and her family, and in the summertime. And whenever I come down to breakfast, my dad has the paper out, and he wants to start a political conversation at whatever time that is. It could be 6 a.m., it could be 7 a.m. How do we like...
I like this already. It sounds cozy and fun.
You know, and there are times that I'll just tell my dad, I just woke up, you know. Is there a way to discuss politics in the family home without causing problems?
Well, I think what's going on with many families, especially given this political climate that we're in, people are fighting. People are having... I've worked with couples who have said to me that they're having a great divide because they don't agree on the policies of this particular president and so on. So if we don't talk about these particular things, I think it causes more conflict. But I think, yes, there are times when, if you don't want to get into it, Rosanna, that you can say, Dad, well, easy for me to say, but Dad, knowing your dad, but Dad, you know, right now, this morning, you know, let me have my Java, let me think about what you're saying, and let's talk about this. But I think it's really wonderful that your father does want to discuss this with you, because it is a form of communication, and we just don't have enough communication.
Well, it's one thing to do it on Saturday morning and everybody's cozy and having fun, but I think, Professor Merkin, your idea makes a lot of sense to me. You're saying don't do it at work. We're too busy, hopefully, making money. And I want to put your book cover up one more time. Saving Face in Business, Managing Cross-Cultural Interactions. Something tells me it might be against HR guidelines to go piping off about politics at work. Is that I don't think, I think we've overlooked that.
I'm not up on HR guidelines.
But you're right, Greg. This is a situation where I know in some offices people come out and they make declarations. Oh, isn't this person terrible? Isn't this situation terrible? And that doesn't necessarily open up dialogue. It could be more of, hey, let's talk about what happened, what we saw. What do you think about that? And it's important to be open to that.
I think part of the problem is that people use really inflammatory words, call them racist, dumb, whatever, like
name
calling, and I just think that that's when the gloves come off and people get very defensive.
Well, I think it's also a situation where people can learn, let off, some of that steam, the catharsis, but you have to be respectable with that. I will tell you who I don't discuss politics with.
Who?
My bosses.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right. Okay.
Good move.
Yeah.
They'll be like, so what do you think of the president? And you'll be like, I don't know. What do you think of the president?
What do you think about my re-signing my contract, right? So you don't want to go against your bosses in that particular way. You have to be smart about that. But it can be a place where you can share ideas. And that's what's missing right now, that we're not talking about race, and we're not doing it in a civilized manner. And when you don't talk about it, that's when we see a lot of the rage and the hatred that comes out.
Rebecca, do you agree with that?
Not
this
necessarily.
Is a
I
forum
don't
you
agree.
can't disagree.
I think that when we start talking about things, people get heated, they get into conflict, and then they can't concentrate.
Well, what the hell do you mean by that?
Yeah. I got it. Let's give it a try. Let's argue an issue that isn't like front burner, so nobody gets up. 1948, Dewey versus Truman. I think that Thomas Dewey, Governor Dewey, was, man, he's the right man for the right job. Don't tell me you're going to vote for President Truman.
Well, just Truman, true, okay? Right there and then. I mean, you got to go with somebody who has the word true in his name.
Oh, boy, that is not smart. Wow, wow.
Hey, are you calling me dumb?
Well, not exactly, but no.
See, this is how it goes.
Let's not do it at work. Dr. Jeff Gardier, Dr. Rebecca Merkin, she has a PhD, and a professor at Baruch College. Thank you very, very much.
Appreciate it. All right, Good Day's going to take a